now be seated.
Good morning. Ready for the jury?
Yes, sir. Say this. Your Honor, can I just make one brief comment?
Yes.
And I've talked to all of us over here. We want to thank the clerk of court for her assistance every time we need something. She has been there for us. The Colleton County Sheriff's Department is providing security, has given us total access to our client. We feel like we've been treated extraordinarily well by all court personnel. And I want to put on the record, since there seems to be a national media interest here, I've tried many cases in many jurisdictions, and I've never been treated at this level of courtesy and understanding. Thank you.
Okay.
Absolutely echo those. Everybody's been great. Absolutely.
Okay, I echo that as well. Very good. Let's bring the jury. Okay, good morning. Day number 7, state's case. We'll have our witness back. I remind you, you're still under oath.
Yes, sir.
Cross-examination. Mr. Griffin.
Good morning, Agent Ross.
Good morning, sir.
On June 8th, I understood that was your first involvement in this case, is that correct?
Yes, sir, that is correct.
And you went to Moselle on the morning of the June 8th?
I was en route to Moselle, got rerouted to the office, and then went and conducted an interview, and then back to Moselle.
That's right, you interviewed Rogan Gibson and then went to Moselle.
That is correct.
And what time did you get to Moselle?
I was around lunchtime when I got there.
And as I understood from your testimony that your role primarily is because in this case is that because you know a lot about guns and ammunition. Did I understand that correctly?
That was not my sole role. I was at the search of the residence because of my familiarity with firearms.
Yes, sir. And you went and searched the residence with other agents, and we saw those agents, some of them, on the body cam video that was played yesterday.
Yes, sir, I was in the gun room.
And this search was a consent search, correct?
That is correct, yes, sir.
I mean, you weren't there executing a search warrant, right?
No, sir, I was not.
And were you aware, though, that there was a search warrant that had been obtained the night before?
I was aware of the consent, the search at the incident location. It's common practice that they get a search warrant to process the scene.
Yes, sir. Were there any limitations that you were aware of on the scope of the consent to search?
No, sir.
And so, as far as you knew and understood then and understand today, you or other agents at SLED could have searched that house from top to bottom on the 8th, is that correct?
Other agents went through the residence with family members.
And there were no limitations on what the other agents could have looked for, right?
Again, I can't say what limitations was placed on them as they walked through the house. I was in the gun room.
Well, to your knowledge, did anyone look for bloody clothes or dirty clothes in the house while you were there on the 8th?
I was in the gun room and I was collecting guns and ammunition, sir.
Now you mentioned that you had been provided some information about the type of ammunition that was used down at the crime scene where Maggie and Paul were murdered. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And one ammunition was a .300 blackout shell casing. Were you aware of that?
Yes, sir, I was.
And who relayed the information to you as the type of ammo that was used for the murder of Maggie and Paul?
It came from the investigative team. I don't recall exactly who called me or who told me the information, but I was relayed the information through our investigative team that was at the scene.
All right, so you were informed that, look out, see what you can find in the gun room related to .300 blackout. Is that correct?
It wasn't limited to specifically .300 blackout. That was a round of interest.
Okay. And then the other round of interest was 12 gauge, correct?
That is correct.
And were you given any information as to what specific type of 12 gauge ammunition was used at the crime scene?
I knew we had a 12 gauge, what believed to be a turkey load or BB load, and then a buckshot.
Okay. And let me talk to you a little bit about the .300 blackout ammunition. You testified yesterday that the grains, the weight of the ammunition found at the house was 147 grains. Is that right?
That is correct. That's what's on the empty box which I located. And
Is this the empty box, State's Exhibit 213 that you're referring to?
that is correct.
And this, I recall, this pack of ammo on this exhibit has a label of Woody's Pawn and Jewelry and $11.99. You couldn't buy this ammunition in June of 2021 for $11.99, could you?
I don't know what the ammunition cost.
Well, you know it was a lot more than $11.99.
I don't know the price of the ammunition at that time.
All right. And are you familiar, there's basically two types of ammunition for the .300 blackout. There's the supersonic and subsonic.
I am, sir.
And the subsonic is the heavier of the two, correct?
That is correct.
And that would be a 220 grain.
Thereabouts, yes, sir.
Yes. And the most popular ammunition for hunting is the supersonic, the 147 grain ammunition. You aware of that?
I can't say the most popular would be, but I am aware that 147 grain is used for hunting.
And you're aware that the .300 blackout has it's not a rare gun in that area of Hampton and Colleton County, is it?
It's not as common as the General 223 or the AR-15, 308, different caliber rifles. It's not as common.
But there are plenty out there, correct?
I can't testify as to how many's out there, sir.
I understand, but it's not the first time you'd seen a .300 blackout on June 8, 2021, was it?
I had seen one before, yes, sir.
And then the 12 gauge, you didn't know what type, you weren't given any type 12 gauge you were looking for. You just, from the information from the crime scene, right?
The type of weapon I was looking for? No,
Yes,
sir. No, sir.
And then were you given information as to the size of the 12 gauge shell? 2.5 inch, 3 inch?
It was, I was given 3-inch Magnum was what I was given.
And that was on the buckshot?
I was given 3-inch Magnum of shotgun capable of shooting a 3-inch Magnum.
Okay. Now, we're going to get to some of these shotguns here in a minute, but that the Browning light doesn't even shoot a 3-inch shell, does it?
It does not, 2 3/4 what it shoots.
Right. And yet you seized it,
I secured it, yes, sir.
and you brought it here to the courtroom and introduced it in this case.
I did, sir.
Yeah. A gun that couldn't even fire the bullet that killed Paul, right?
It did not fire the rounds that was located at the scene.
Right. In fact, none of the shotguns that you brought yesterday, according to the ballistic report, your lab analysis, fired the shots that killed Paul, correct?
I do not have the lab report in front of me.
Well, you certainly know that after June 8th, SLED was diving in ponds and waterways looking for the murder weapons. Isn't that correct?
We were diving, looking for potential evidence from the scene.
Have you ever found the murder weapons, to your knowledge?
Objection, Your Honor. That's outside the scope of his knowledge.
Objection's overruled.
Not that I'm aware of, sir.
And are you familiar with what ballistics tests were done on Buster's 300 Blackout? And whether that was excluded as a weapon used to kill his mother?
Again, I don't have the report in front of me, and I'm not able to testify to that, sir.
And you brought these empty turkey load, Exhibit 214, I believe, brought these into evidence, the box of turkey shells,
That is the boxes I collected, yes, sir.
and these were empty,
Yes, sir, they were.
and these were found in the trash can?
Yes, sir. They were found in a trash bag, yes, sir.
Okay. And you, let's see. Exhibit, the other end has exhibit number. Exhibit 90 is the Browning Auto 5 Light 12 gauge, which we already talked about wouldn't even hold a 3-inch shell, but there was no shells, no ammo in the Browning weapon, which is Exhibit 90 you brought to court, right?
There was no rounds in that weapon.
When you seized it on the 8th, no rounds in it, right?
That is correct, yes,
All
sir.
right. The Mossberg model Ultra-Mag, which is Exhibit 89, you have a 12 gauge shot shell written on the outside. So there was one shot shell in this, loaded in this gun, correct?
That is correct, yes, sir.
And do you remember if it was buckshot or birdshot?
It was black. I don't remember what it was.
Will you be able to look at it and tell us?
Yes, sir.
All right, I'm gonna hand you Exhibit 89 and ask if you can pull out the shot, the ammo in there, and tell this jury if that's birdshot or buckshot first.
It is a Browning 12 gauge, 3.5-inch Magnum, 2 1/4, number 7 and 9.
And that's for hunting turkeys, right?
That's my understanding, yes, sir.
All right, thank you. Put it back in there.
This end, closer.
Here we go. Thank you. Yes, sir. So, in the Mossberg, there's one bird shot. Now, the other, the Benelli Super Black Eagle 3 had 2 unfired shot shells according to your notes on the box. And this is Exhibit 91, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And do you recall whether any of these was bird shot, boat shot? Do you remember?
I would have to look at them again, sir.
All right. That was Exhibit 91 for the record.
There's a black round in here that's a 3-inch number 4 pellet, and then there's a 2.25 ounce 3.5 inch with an 89 millimeter.
And those are both turkey loads, right?
It could be used for turkey, yes, sir.
Well, let's just be clear, neither one of those are buckshot, correct?
No, sir.
Thank you. And again, these were ruled out as having any involvement in the murder of Paul, right? Exhibit 91.
I can't testify to any lab reports. I don't have the lab reports, and that's out of the scope of what I did.
Was it correct to say, Agent Croft, that you did not find any guns loaded in the gun room or anywhere at Moselle that had a bird shot and a buckshot loaded at the same time?
The only weapons I've recovered are the weapons that are there with the rounds that we have just looked at, yes, sir.
And if you or another agent in your presence made a representation that we found in the gun room a gun with similar loads as that we found at the crime scene, that would be an incorrect statement, would it?
I don't think it would be incorrect to say that there was guns were loaded in a similar fashion using two different types of ammunition, 2 different loads.
Well, there's no buckshot in any of the 2 guns that you found loaded, correct?
Not when we collected them, no, sir.
And the turkey loads or the bird loads that we just looked at, those the pellets in those are lead, are they not?
I would have to look at the actual box that it came in or the pellets that are in it. Some of them are steel. I'm not sure.
So do you know the difference between steel and lead?
Do I know the difference?
Yeah. What's the difference? Why would you have steel versus lead?
Steel shot is used a lot in waterfowl hunting, that type of stuff. Lead shot is used for normal everyday rabbit, squirrel, dove.
Well, we do have some boxes here, 214. Can you tell us whether this is lead or steel?
The Winchester 12 gauge shot lock lead is a turkey load number 4. The Browning box, I do not see it indicated on the box what the ball is or the pellets are.
Well, let me ask you, is there a turkey on the face of that box?
There is a turkey on the face of the box, yes, sir.
And is turkey a waterfowl bird or land bird?
Turkey is a land bird, sir. And the other box is the same on Federal. It's got a turkey on the front.
All right. So those 3 boxes look like they're turkey loads, right?
That's what it appears.
Okay. Did you find any waterfowl shell boxes at Moselle on June 8th?
I did not collect any waterfowl shell boxes from Moselle.
Did you collect any waterfowl unfired shotgun, 12-gauge shotgun shells at Moselle on June the 8th?
Not that I'm aware of, sir.
Have you ever collected unfired shotgun shells for waterfowl at Moselle in part of this investigation?
I do not recall collecting any waterfowl shot.
Are you aware, sir, that the shot that blew Paul Murdaugh's head off was Winchester dry lock, steel waterfowl, 12-gauge ammunition?
I was aware that the pellets were steel.
Well, you can look at the outside of the spent shell casing and see that it's Winchester dry lock, correct?
If I had the shell casing, yes, sir, I can see it.
And you know that to be a waterfowl, a duck load, correct?
I know that it's primarily used for duck load, yes, sir.
And you know that's what killed Paul Murdaugh.
I do know that it was steel shot.
And you didn't find any similar ammunition at Moselle on June the 8th or any time after that, correct?
I did not, sir.
Now, you were showing pictures of the gun room and and I think you testified there were some 25 guns and gun racks.
It's roughly 20 to 25 guns.
And this is 1,700 acres of hunting land?
Yes, sir.
And, I mean, did it shock you to see that many guns? They were all hunting guns, were they not?
It did not shock me to see that many hunting guns.
And a lot of people in Hampton, Colleton, this part of Low Country, when they hunt with those types of guns. Isn't that correct?
Yes, sir.
And nothing, you didn't find anything unusual about the number of guns they had in their house, right?
I did not, sir.
Thank you. Now, you mentioned that you know something about the ejection pattern of the 300 blackout. Do you remember testifying about that?
I remember testifying that it ejects to the right and slightly backwards.
And I'm going to let you take it out. I'm a city boy.
May I stand?
Yes, sir, please. Do you mind, y'all? Good stuff. Thank you. So if you could, while you're standing, if you could just step down and point the gun at that door, and hopefully no one comes through, and show the jury the direction that the shells would go.
Can I point it up further?
Point it up would be
than the door?
great. That's probably safer. Told you I was a city boy.
The rounds would be ejected from this side across would be my right shoulder.
Okay. And so, and it's a semi-automatic, I mean, you have to pull the trigger each time, is that right?
That is correct, sir.
And every time you pull the trigger, it shoots a shell, ejects off toward your right shoulder, toward the rear, right?
As long as there's ammunition in the magazine.
And how far does it go before it lands, roughly?
I can't answer that, sir.
foot, 2 feet, 3 feet?
I can't testify to how far an ejected shell is going to expend from the
Okay,
weapon.
that's fine. Can you put it back, please?
Yes, sir.
What way you have it up? When you point to the jury, I think they saw it before, but let's just be clear. The thermal scope, can you point that out?
This would be this item here.
And you've got to charge that, right? That's sort of you've got to plug it in, battery operated of some sort?
It would have some sort of power. I don't know if it's a rechargeable battery or batteries that has to be replaced.
Okay. And the thermal scope is for hunting at night, is that right?
It could be used for hunting at night, yes, sir.
Regular scope
To
is
pick
kind
up infrared, it's heat sensitive.
of hard to hunt at night with a regular scope, because it doesn't pick up
Scope and
infrared
a light
heat.
would work, but this is also used.
Yeah. Okay. All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Agent Croft, I'm going to show you what went into evidence yesterday is Defendant's Exhibit 29. And can you see it from up there?
Yes, sir, I can.
And these, like marker 7, 5, 6, I'll just, it's identified in the legend over here, but these are 300 blackout shell casings. Do you understand that to be the case?
I don't see marker 5 on the printout on the left-hand side there.
When you're right, it's not on. 1, 2. Well, let's just follow along. If these are in fact shell casings, from what you just described to the jury, the ejection path of the 300 blackout, where would the person shooting the gun be standing in relation to these markers?
Your Honor,
6, 5, 6, and 7.
Objection, Madam Qualified Minister.
Objection's overruled.
If 7, 5, and 6 are shell casings, that it would be likely that the shooter would be to the upper side of those rounds.
Somewhere near this line in that area?
I can't testify to that line or any kind of angle of that line, no, sir.
Understand, but it would be on the side of the line. It'd be up in here somewhere, right?
It would be on the left-hand side of where those numbers are. It would be likely that the shooter would be on the left-hand side of where those numbers are if you're looking at it from where I'm sitting.
The shooter be on the left-hand side of these numbers and a little forward of these numbers, is that right?
I can't say because I'm not sure if the ejection hit something on the way out, or if there was an obstruction on the ejection. I don't know. I can't testify to how far they would go. I just know that a normal 300 ejects to the right and slightly backwards.
Yes, sir. Thank you. You were at Moselle on the 8th. I think we've established that. And did you go back on the 13th?
I did, sir.
And you went to the house on the 13th as well?
I did, sir.
Okay. And we saw body cam from where you're picking up shell casings around the side door, 300 blackout shell casings around the side door. And I think, was that the 8th when you got the shell casing next to the...
That was around 2 o'clock on the 8th, a little after 2.
Now, jury will have the video if they want to see it, but as you're standing out there, you can see the rooftops of the shed building and some other structures down at the kennels where the murders took place. Remember, you could see the rooftops?
I would think you could see the rooftops.
But that's all you could see, correct? You couldn't see sled agents working around down there by the dog kennels.
No, sir, there's planted pines between the residence and the kennels.
So the fact of the matter is, you can't see people at the dog kennels from the house based on your personal observations. Is that correct?
From where I was standing, no, sir.
Now, you also testified about the location of Maggie's phone, how it was found.
Yes, sir.
Did you go out there when it was located?
Yes, sir, I did.
You recall how it was located?
Yes, sir, I do.
How was it located?
We sent information to the phone company for a ping. The ping was actually 20-something hundred meters, which is a long ways. We then learned that she had Find My iPhone on her phone. One of the family members assisted with locating that phone, getting a better location on the phone, and we were ultimately able to find it.
So you found the phone, Maggie's phone, by a family member using Find My iPhone.
And I think it was John Marvin is the one that assisted us with that.
And do you think John Marvin was using Buster's phone to do that?
I don't have a clue what he was using.
And then when the phone was collected, you provided the password. Remember, you testified the password was provided.
We were provided the PIN to open the phone, yes, sir.
Are you aware that Alex Murdaugh provided the PIN to SLED so they could open Maggie's phone?
Again, I don't know where the passcode or PIN came from, but we were provided a PIN.
Do you know what a Faraday bag is?
Yes, sir, I do.
Did anyone have a Faraday bag?
I did not have a Faraday bag that day.
What's the purpose of a Faraday bag?
To prevent any tampering from outside sources once a cell phone is collected.
And you can put the cell phone inside a Faraday bag so it can't hit Wi-Fi, cell phone towers.
Again, it prevents any tampering from outside to prevent anybody from being able to communicate with the phone.
It
From any
helps.
outside sources.
It's a tool to secure the evidence to prevent tampering.
It is
Inadvertent or intentional tampering, right?
Yes, sir, it is one tool that can be used.
And with Maggie's phone put in a Faraday bag when it was seized on the side of Moselle Road.
No, it was not.
Did anyone ask or bring up the fact that, hey, maybe we should get a Faraday bag before we move this phone?
I did not ask,
Anybody ask in your presence?
not that I'm aware of.
Now, on June 8th, you were briefed and you were advised that Alec found his wife and son murdered. He was the one that discovered them, correct?
Yes, sir.
And on June 8th, you knew that he was Maggie's husband, Paul's father, immediate family, correct?
Yes, sir.
And as part of your long-time experience investigating crimes, murders in particular, someone who finds the bodies and is related to the victims is always going to be looked at. Is that fair?
That would be a fair statement, sir.
And y'all were looking at Alex on the 8th. SLED was, correct?
Yes, sir.
And would you have a label? Was he person of interest or suspect on the 8th?
We were looking at Alec being the one that found the deceased, being the husband, the father, in an attempt to get Mr. Alec out of that immediate circle.
And you've described this investigative circle. So you draw a circle around potential persons of interest, and Alex was in that circle, correct?
We don't draw a circle around any individual person. We worked with the crime scene, which is what we consider the circle, and we worked from our way inside out in order to find any potential suspects, identify the suspects, clear individuals. So we start with the small circle.
So when you started with the small circle, although you don't draw it, I mean, it's a sort of investigative mental tool, who was the person in the small circle?
We had Miss Maggie was in the crime scene, Paul was in the crime scene, and Alec was in the crime scene.
And you remember that on the morning of the 8th, there were media reports that Alec was a person of interest in the murder of his wife and son. Do you remember that being public knowledge?
I try to avoid the media in any investigation because I don't want to be influenced by anything that's said.
And what do you recall SLED putting out a press release on the morning of the 8th that the public need not be alarmed?
I do not recall any press release being put out by SLED.
Never? Well, the point being, on the 8th, there was a circle, and it was only around Alec. He was the only living and breathing person in the circle. Is that correct?
That is the only person that we could place in the circle at that time.
And on the 8th, SLED knew that, from what interviews with Alec, that he said he left Moselle shortly after 9 p.m., went to visit his mother in Alameda, stayed for a while, and came back. SLED, and you were aware of that fact?
I am aware of that, yes, sir.
Did anybody at SLED ever, on the morning of the 8th, hightail it over to Alameda and search the house for any evidence whatsoever?
I did not go to Alameda and search the house on the 8th.
Are you aware of anyone ever going to Alameda to search the house until sometime in September of 2021?
There was a number of agents out working. I'm not sure what the other agents did.
Wouldn't it have been a good idea to go to Alameda on the morning of the 8th, where the guy in the circle says he was, right?
I did not go, and I can't testify to what other agents did.
Well, you've been working this investigation. You the lead case agent?
No, sir, I'm not.
Who's the lead case agent?
David Owen.
Right. Now, every interview that Alex Murdaugh gave, you participated in, right?
I did, sir.
So were you working, sort of Agent Owen's right-hand man in this investigation?
I was assigned by the captain to assist Agent Owens.
So it's fair that you knew daily developments as the investigation progressed, right?
We had briefings with each other on the case. Yes, sir.
And you knew that at no point in time, in June, July, August, anyone went over to Alameda, searched the house, searched the property for any dirty clothes or any murder weapons.
I know that I did not go, and I'm not sure what the other agents in the investigative circle had done.
Well, if you went over there, if you had gone over there on the morning of the 8th, scoured the place and not find anything, that would sort of help nudge Alec outside this investigative circle, would it not?
I can't testify to what ifs, sir. I did not go.
Okay. On the 8th, you were asked to point out who's that person, who's that person, who's that person. That's Ronnie Crosby, he's a lawyer. That's Mark Ball, he's a lawyer. That's Lee Cope, he's a lawyer. You remember that testimony?
I do, sir.
Okay. Now, Alec wasn't lawyering up on the 8th. Those were his friends who came over to help him, correct?
They were given counsel to Alec as far as what we were doing. They were making phone calls to his counsel. That was the instruction which we gave. We were given.
And they were assisting you, as you saw on the body cam, go through the evidence that you ended up seizing in the gun room, right?
They pointed out some items that they had concerns about.
Did you find that their efforts were obstructing your investigation?
They didn't obstruct our search within that gun room, no, sir.
Now, you went back, I think, on June 13th, is that correct?
Yes, sir, we did.
And remind me, what was the purpose of the search on June 13th?
Search on June 13th was a follow-up search of the residence. I would have to see the search warrant, actual search warrant, to see what items was being sought at that time.
Are you testifying that you had to get a search warrant on the 13th?
Search warrant or consent, I'm not sure. I don't know what exact, everything that was being looked for at that time.
Well, in fact, Alex Murdaugh gave consent anytime he was asked by SLED if they could go on the property, right?
My understanding is consent was obtained each time.
And so there was no search warrant on the 13th, was there, Agent Crone?
I would have to see our legal grounds for being there, as far as whether it was consent or search warrant. I do not know.
Right. And you don't need a search warrant if there's consent?
No, sir, you do not.
And in this interview, this search, you've seized Exhibit 151, which is, hand it to you. That's 300 blackout clip. Is that right?
It's a magazine with 300 blackout ammunition, yes, sir.
And that was found where?
Collected from a black Ford F-150.
On the property. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes, sir.
And I think you testified it was found on the floorboard of the truck. Is that right?
I didn't testify to where it was found, no, sir.
Do you know where it was found?
No, sir. Just a black Ford F-150.
Did you find it?
No, sir, I did not.
Oh, it was just provided to you?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, the jury heard this videotape interview of Alec on June 10th, where he told you that Paul left everything everywhere. Do you remember hearing that statement?
I do remember that, yes, sir.
And does this evidence support what Alec told you, that Paul left everything everywhere if you found a clip, 300 blackout?
I can't testify to who had the magazine in the F-150.
Do you know who last drove that F-150?
I do not, sir.
Was any analysis done of that clip?
The way it's packaged there, it does not appear that there's been any analysis done.
Were any fingerprints taken of that clip?
Again, sir, the way it's packaged, it does not appear that there was any analysis done.
And I think there was another clip that was seized from the shelf in the gun room. I don't have that pulled up, but I think it's 150 perhaps. Did you remember seizing another clip from the gun room?
Yes, sir, there was another magazine with 300 blackout.
Any fingerprints taken from the clip seized from the shelf in the gun room?
I don't think so, sir.
Was there any analysis done of the clip taken from the shelf in the gun room?
The way I recall it being packaged yesterday, it would appear that there was no analysis performed.
Yet you brought it to court. You want this jury to have it. Why is that?
Objection, Your Honor.
Basis for the objection.
I believe that's outside the scope of this witness's purpose here as to why it's being offered in court.
Response to the objection.
You're not asking his knowledge, not anything beyond his knowledge. He can say, I don't know, or if he has a reason.
Overruled objection.
Can you repeat the question,
Yeah.
please, sir?
Do you know why you were asked to bring those clips here to court and put them in evidence before this jury?
I do not, sir.
Now, you also did a search of the shooting range. I couldn't go through my notes, and I don't have a date. Was that on the 13th or a different day?
I'm not sure if it's the 13th or the 16th.
16th? I think you may be right. Either way, again, that was a consent search, right? You didn't have a search warrant for that.
We did get consent for that, yes, sir.
And the jury saw the video. We're not going to belabor that again, but there was a shooting house, if you will, with a chair and a thing you would rest a gun on. And we saw you picking up a lot of shell casings, right?
Yes, sir.
And the shell casings you were picking up were the 300 blackout spent shell casings, cartridges, right?
That is correct, sir.
But there was a lot of brass in there that were not 300 blackout cartridges, right?
There was additional brass that was not 300, yes, sir.
Now, we didn't get a good look. If you're sitting in that chair in that shooting house, downrange, do you remember what was on the other end of 100 yards or so away? Do you remember what was on the other end?
I do not recall what's back on that end, no, sir. Target of some sort.
Are you aware there was a big dirt mound there?
A berm, too.
Yeah. That's safe, right? You don't want to be shooting a rifle just going down without something to stop it. So there's a berm there to stop it.
It was
right?
going into a wooded area, yes, sir.
But there was a
dirt
berm.
mound. There was a dirt mound.
There was a target and then a dirt mound behind it.
That's correct.
Now, we saw you picking up brass. Who went down to the other end and started digging in that earthen dirt mound to find fired projectiles?
I did not go down to the other end, no, sir.
In fact, nobody at SLED went to that other end to dig out 300 blackout fired projectiles, did they?
I did not, and I don't know what the other agents did, no, sir.
Well, you're assisting Agent Owen. You're going to briefings. You didn't hear at any point in time while we should have, or we did dig out projectiles from the dirt mound.
I never heard of anyone digging out the dirt mounds, digging out brass from the dirt mound.
If you had dug out projectiles from the dirt mound, that could have been sent to the ballistics lab at SLED and done a comparison to projectiles found at the crime scene, correct?
There would be a lot of elements that would go into whether it could actually be looked at or not.
We could certainly compare it to what was, you could take a 300 blackout, shoot it out of Buster's gun right there leaning next to you, and then compare it to the projectiles. You're aware that could be done in SLED, right?
Yes, sir, I am.
But it wasn't, was it?
I'm not sure what testing was done on this particular rifle to compare it to anything at the scene.
Okay. Now, let's go to the June 10th interview. You and Agent Owens interviewed Alec in Agent Owens' SUV, SLED issued vehicle on June 10th, right?
Yes, sir, we did.
And that was at Brother John Marvin's hunting lodge in Barnville or somewhere close by, right?
Yes, sir.
Not yet, not yet. A lot of people were interviewed that day, right?
There was a number of interviews going on at the same time, yes, sir.
And again, that was consent, correct? The interviews were consensual.
Yes, sir.
And you interviewed, the folks being interviewed that day not only included Alec, but they included John Marvin, his brother, his son Buster, and his other brother Randy. Is that correct?
To my recollection, yes, sir.
And when you pulled up on June the 10th, it's about, was it early afternoon it seemed like?
The timestamp should be on the video. I don't recall what time it was.
But it was a little bit like the cavalry coming, wasn't it? Because there were a lot of cars that pulled up at one time, right?
They were aware we were coming.
They were, how many agents went?
We took agents to interview each person that was there.
You took 2 agents for each interview, right?
I think there was 2 agents for each interview, yes, sir.
And each agent came in their own car, right?
I think I may have rode with Special Agent Owen. I'm not sure if the others drove their own cars or not.
Well, and so there's at least 4, could have been more than that, cars, right?
There was probably full cars, yes, sir.
And you put each person, Randy, John Marvin, Buster, and Alec, in a separate car all at one time.
Pretty close to the same time, yes, sir. Each one got in a car with agents.
And that's a law enforcement investigative technique so that you don't want witnesses to be comparing notes, and you want to interview them in separate places, same time, and to get what's fresh on their mind without learning of what another witness has said, right?
We wanted to interview them individually, yes, sir.
And you said they knew that they were coming, but did you alert anyone that we're all going to be coming in, at least 4 cars, and we're going to interview you separately at the same time?
There was some other things that was going to take place while we were conducting the interviews, so it was arranged that they would all be at that location, and we were going to meet them there and conduct the interviews.
And you also had a guy there to do the phone extraction.
Yes, sir. Those are the other things I'm talking about.
Now, that wasn't told to Alec or John Marvin or Buster or Randy before SLED rolled in on the 8th at John Marvin's hunting lodge, right?
It's my understanding that they knew we were coming and that we were going to request the phone analysis be done.
You think someone when SLED would have told Alec ahead of time, told John Marvin ahead of time, that we're going to, when we get there, be sure not to erase anything off your phone because we're going to download it?
I didn't set the meeting up. I went with Agent Owen to conduct the interview.
So, but one of the first things you did in the interview was, you and Agent Owen, was ask Alec if he would give over his phone so that it could be extracted, right?
That was one of the first things we asked for.
And that extraction was done, by another agent who came in a separate vehicle, I assume. Is that right?
He's not an agent with the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division, no, sir.
Okay. He was investigator with 14th Circuit Solicitor's Office,
That's my understanding of his job title, yes, sir.
and that would be Investigator Hightower. Is that who did that?
That is my understanding, yes, sir.
And during the interview, you also, at the end of the interview, you got a buccal swab from Alec, right?
I did, sir.
And you got a buccal swab from, not you, but everybody who was interviewed gave buccal swabs, meaning John Marvin, Randy, Buster, and Alec, correct?
I know that Alec, we secured a buckle from Alec. I'm pretty sure that there was one collected from Buster. I'm not sure about John Marvin and Randy.
Now, yesterday, we listened to the entire video interview with Alec, and it ran for almost an hour, could be longer, but you sat on the stand and heard that, right?
Yes, sir, I did.
And at various points in time, you were asked, what did he just tell you? Did he just tell you this? Do you remember that?
I do, sir.
And then you get to one point in the interview where you're asked, what did you just say after you said it must be tormenting? And you testified that Alex said on the video captured by audio that it was so bad, I did him so bad. That's what you testified to yesterday.
Yes, sir, that is what I testified to.
Now, are you 100% confident that Alex said, I did him so bad, rather than they did him so bad?
I am 100% confident in what I heard and I interpreted him as saying.
But you would agree that this jury can hear the same thing you heard on June the 10th by playing what was captured on the body cam or the recording equipment in Agent Owen's car, right?
Yes, sir.
Now, when you heard what you said, you're confident what you heard, that he said, I did him so bad, what'd you do in response to that?
I made a mental note of it. Again, we were still in the early stages of investigation. It was more of an information gathering from Mr. Alec. And we did not have information at that point, to my opinion, to challenge Mr. Alec on any of his statements.
Your Arm 11. So, Alex Murdaugh was the one and only in this circle on June the 10th. You're in the car with him, and according to your testimony, he says, I did him so bad.
That is what I understood him to say, yes, sir.
And yet, you just said you took a mental note of it.
Yes, sir, I did.
I mean, if the guy in the middle of the circle, the only one in the circle, says, I did him so bad, isn't that a significant statement if he actually said that?
It's definitely something we would follow up with.
You never followed up with it, did you?
There was a third interview conducted with Mr. Alex.
There was a third interview. There was a third interview conducted on August the 11th, 2021, right?
I don't recall the exact date.
We hear about it, but you were there, right?
Yes, sir, I was.
Tell the jury, if you asked Alex Murdaugh on August 11th, 2021, what did you mean back on June 10th when you said, I did him so bad?
We didn't make it to that point, sir.
In fact, back on June 10th, after you had this, what you heard him say, I did him so bad, you went on to talk about funeral arrangements, whether they're going to be public or private. Isn't that right?
There was questions concerning funeral arrangements, yes, sir.
And Agent Owen says, well, Alex said he's trying to make arrangements so it wouldn't be, a lot of media there or any media there. And, the guy who just said, I did him so bad, the response to that was, they don't deserve to be there. You recall that?
Repeat that again, sir.
Do you recall Agent Owen saying in your presence to Alec, the media did not deserve to be at Maggie and Paul's funeral?
I do recall Agent Owen saying something about the media not being there. Yes, sir.
And that was after, according to you, he said, I did him so bad.
Yes, sir.
Did you consider that to be some sort of confession on June the 10th?
Again, it was something that we were definitely going to follow up on. Yes, sir.
Getting ready for your testimony yesterday,
Excuse me.
did you review a transcript that was prepared by SLED of that interview of June 10th with Alec?
No, sir. I've never seen a transcript that was prepared for that.
Are you aware the transcript was prepared at SLED?
No, sir, I'm not.
Are you hearing that the first time?
Yes, sir, I am.
Well, let me ask you back on June 10th. Why didn't you ask him right then and there when he said, I did him so bad? Why didn't you ask him, what do you mean by that, Alec?
Again, it was early in the investigation. It was more of an information gathering interview, if you would call it an interview, with Mr. Alec. And we did not, at that particular time in the investigation, we did not have evidence to challenge anything that Mr. Alec would have told us. It was decided that we would not cross that at that time.
I mean, my question wasn't, why didn't you challenge him? My question is, why didn't you ask for clarification? Like, what are you talking about? You did him so bad.
Asking for clarification of I did him so bad would ultimately be a challenge of what he said.
So what were the things going through your mind when you heard or misheard, I did him so bad? I mean, like, I wasn't a good dad? I spoiled him? Or I killed him? I mean, what was going through your mental note?
There was a mental note that it was definitely something that we needed to follow up on and ask at a later time.
Now, from the video, it appears you're back there taking some notes.
Yes, sir.
Did you take notes?
I was writing specific stuff
You
down.
mentioned you made a mental note of this, what you heard or misheard, I did him so bad, but did you make a written note of him saying that?
I don't recall if I wrote it or not, sir.
So it's possible that you're sitting there with a guy who's now been charged with murder on June 10th in the interview, the father, the only one in the circle, and he says, I did him so bad, and you can't tell a jury you even wrote it down on a piece of paper.
I don't recall if I actually made a physical note of it or not, sir.
I'm going to play that clip from State's Exhibit 243, which is in evidence. I want you to listen again with the jury. Hang on, Your Honor. All right, let's play it. Please, Doug. Exhibit 243 in evidence.
It's tough. It's just so bad. They did it so bad.
All right. Back it up and play it in real time again, Doug. Real time.
Or not easy. I know it's hard. And sitting here talking today is tough. It's just so bad. They did it so bad.
Stop. Did you hear now, they or I?
I will still testify that my hearing, I hear I.
Your Honor, we'd like to play it again at 1/3 speed to slow it down. It's just the same. Thank you.
Third speed, and the foundation laid for who's manipulating it, how it's being manipulated. I think obviously we have it in real time, but there would have to be some additional foundation.
Play at 1/3 speed.
And sitting here talking today is tough. It's just so bad. They did it so bad.
Did you hear they then?
No, sir, I did not.
Okay. But you would agree the jury gets to decide what he said on that tape. That's the best evidence.
I agree that they get to hear the tape and make their own mind up as to what he said, yes, sir.
Thank you, that's all I have on that. Now, I said the date August 11th. You said you weren't sure, but there was another interview with Alex Murdaugh came to the SLED Low Country office, and you and Agent Owen sat down and interviewed him, correct?
That is correct.
Now, on all these interviews that were conducted and that have been played somewhat, or body cam conversations, except for Ella, when you're doing them, do you tell the person that you're interviewing, hey, I'm going to turn the audio recorder on, you're now being recorded? Is that standard operating procedure?
We normally don't advise that we're recording, no, sir.
And you certainly didn't advise Alec that you're recording him on any of the interviews that you conducted with Agent Owen, correct?
I never advised anyone that I was that they were being recorded.
And this meeting that you had, were you aware that Alec was asking for the meeting so that he could get an update on whether you made any progress in the investigation of the murder of his wife and son?
I was aware that Alec had requested a meeting to raise some questions as to what was going on.
I mean, he wanted information as to what was going on, right?
That's my understanding, yes, sir.
But y'all had other plans for that meeting, correct?
No, sir, I'm not going to say we had other plans for that meeting. It was an interview.
Yeah, I mean, he came there he didn't go to that meeting thinking, I'm going to be interviewed. To your knowledge, did he?
To my knowledge, I don't know what his thinking was. He knew he was coming there to meet with myself and Agent Owen.
Okay. And during that interview, pretty much you made it known to him that, well, I mean, you asked him point blank, did you kill your wife and son?
He was asked that.
And you made it pretty clear that, well, let me ask you, at that point in time, was he full bore suspect in your murder investigation?
He was still a person of interest. There was some questions that we had regarding the information that we had obtained that only he could answer.
And did he answer the questions that you asked?
Yes, sir.
And then at the end of that interview, he asked you to meet with Maggie's mom and dad, Mr. and Ms. Brandstetter, and her family, correct?
I think that was the end of the second interview, not the third interview.
All right. Well, shortly after that shortly after that third interview with Alec, which we'll get the date in the record eventually, a few days later, you and Agent Owen went and met with Maggie's mom and dad, sister and brother-in-law, and nieces, correct?
That is correct.
And part of that interview, well, that interview was recorded, right?
The interview with
the
Brandstetters?
Yes.
Yes, sir. It was audio recorded.
Did you tell them you were recording it?
We did not.
And
I don't think. I did not tell them.
and part of the interview was conducted as part of your investigation to get information to assist you in next steps, correct?
The interview was a combination interview. It was to share information and also to gather information concerning family dynamics, yes, sir.
In that interview, you and/or Agent Owen told the Brandstetters and the Proctors that Alec is in this circle of investigation, correct?
It was no secret that Alec was in that circle at that point, no, sir.
And that you also told them he's the only one that you've identified in the circle, correct?
I don't recall saying he's the only one in that circle.
Well, did you identify for the Brandstetters or the Proctors any other people in the circle?
They particularly asked about Alex, so I don't recall giving them any other names that was being looked at.
In early August of 2021, was there anybody else in the circle that your SLED was focused on?
Again, sir, at that particular date, I'm not sure who all was still within that circle.
And during this interview, Maggie's mother, Ms. Kennedy Brandstetter, her father, Mr. Terry Brandstetter, her sister, Marion Proctor, and brother-in-law, Bart, and their children described for y'all their observations of Alex's relationship with Maggie and Paul, correct?
From their observation of their relationship, yes, sir.
And that was, you were asking that as part of your investigative tool and getting
Yes, sir,
information.
that's correct.
And they reported to you that Alec had a loving relationship with Maggie and Paul, correct?
Rule 801 and 802.
Pardon?
Objection, Rule 801 and 802.
Response.
It's not being offered for the matter asserted, Your Honor, what he did in response to that.
Objection sustained.
Were you given information in that interview? Did they identify other people who had warned Maggie that word on the street in Hampton that there was some risk to her family's safety resulting from the boating accident?
I don't recall any specific information concerning warning of threats or of any nature. No, sir, I don't recall that.
You don't recall being provided the name Barbara Mixon?
I do recall being provided names of those that may have information, but as far as specific information, I do not recall any specific information that was shared by the Brandstetters.
You know whether Ms. Mixon was ever interviewed following your meeting with the Brandstetters?
I know I never interviewed Ms. Mixon.
Were you given information about Ms. Keena Traherne of a similar nature?
Again, I never interviewed Ms. Traherne, if her name was given, no, sir.
1 minute, Your Honor, may I check to see what I left?
Excuse me.
That's all the questions I have, Your Honor.
Thank you, Your Honor. Senior Special Agent Croft, a couple things. When you went back, or you went and searched that house, your focus was searching for guns, is that correct?
That is correct, sir.
And to your knowledge, when other agents walked through the house with the family members, and this is on June 8th, fundamentally they were looking for firearms, is that correct?
That is my understanding, yes, sir.
You were asked about these weapons that you seized that are put into evidence, and you were looking for any potential weapon that could fire rounds consistent with those that were used at the scene, is that right?
That is correct.
I'm going to redirect, Your Honor. That's for a little bit.
Don't lead the witness.
Yes, sir, Your Honor. What is the point of gathering as much evidence as you can when you have that opportunity? What are you trying to do there?
We were trying to gather as much evidence that could be tested as potential weapons for the scene to be able to include or to exclude Mr. Alex or these weapons from being the person responsible for the murders.
You were asked a little bit about this right here, and this was June of 2021, correct?
That is correct, yes, sir.
Had COVID had any effect generally on the availability of ammunition?
I'm sorry?
Had COVID had any effect generally on the availability of ammunition?
Yes, sir.
And tell the jury what, if any, effect that was.
Ammunition was difficult to get during that time because of the shutdowns during COVID.
Did you find a lot of ammunition inside the defendant's residence?
There was quite a bit of ammunition.
Did you
inside.
find a lot of different types of ammunition inside the defendant's residence?
Yes, sir, we did.
Did you find a lot of S&B 300 blackout in the defendant's residence?
That was mostly what we found.
You were asked about the commonality of various rounds blackout through others, and you mentioned 308, 223, and 556. Can you tell the jury a little bit about those rounds and why they tend to be a bit more common as you testified to, please?
I'm sorry, can you mind repeating?
Yeah, sure. You testified.
Objects beyond the scope. I didn't ask anything about 223s and whatever he said.
He asked about the commonality of blackout, and he answered about those
The
other
witness
calibers.
asked for you to repeat the question. I would like to hear it as well.
Yes, sir. You were asked earlier about the commonality of blackout, and you mentioned it was not as common as 308, 223, and 556. I was asking you to explain a little bit about those calibers and why they were more common.
Okay. 223 is a very common round. It's utilized in law enforcement. 556 is utilized within law enforcement and also within the military. It's prior to COVID, it was easily found, fairly cheap ammunition to go out and shoot as far as rifle ammunition goes. 308 is a hunting rifle, which can be used for larger game such as whitetail and stuff like that. 308 is also a common round that's used within the law enforcement and the military side. It's a very common round. 300, on the other hand, it's just at that particular time, 300 rounds were or weapons were just not that common.
How many criminal investigations have you worked where 300 blackout was the murder round?
I have none.
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 You were asked earlier about the boxes and what has been admitted into evidence as states 214. And are there multiple exhibits in that particular bag that was not opened?
Yes, sir, it is.
Right. And aside from the boxes, what, if any, other exhibit is in that particular bag?
It is what appears to be a credit card receipt with one particular item circled.
And that item circled was what?
Gucci.
Of course, the dog's swimming over here. You're asked a few questions about what the lab report found. And where your experience is in general firearms knowledge, is that correct?
That is correct, yes,
Are
sir.
you a firearm marks and tool mark examiner?
No, sir, I'm not.
Is it your role to do that specific analysis?
It is not, sir.
Is that analysis for others to do?
That is correct, sir.
Others who will testify later?
That is correct, sir.
You were asked a number of questions about the various loads in some of these shotguns. Did you find weapons that had mixed loads, that had different types of ammunition in them?
Yes, sir, I did.
You were asked a couple of questions about the board that Mr. Harpootlian put into evidence yesterday. You recall those?
Yes, sir, I do.
Are you aware that both victims had stippling on them from their gunshot injuries?
Yes, sir, I am.
And what is stippling?
Stippling is a powder burn pattern which is left on an individual due to a close-range shot.
To a close-range shot?
That is correct.
Thank you. You were asked some questions about the location of where shell casings land when they're ejected out of the weapon. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, I was.
Are there a number of factors that go into where a shell casing might actually land?
Yes, sir, it is.
Can people move?
I'm sorry, sir.
Do people move?
People can move, yes, sir.
You were asked a couple questions about the cell phone and whether or not it was put in the Faraday bag. Do you know if that phone was put in airplane mode?
I think it was, yes, sir.
You've been asked a number of questions about the defendant and the investigation. Do you recall during the course of the interview on June 10th, did Agent Owen mention that y'all had talked to 100 people at that point?
I do, yes, sir.
All right. And was the investigation just focused on Alex Murdaugh, or was it focused on anyone and everyone it could focus on?
It was absolutely not just focused on Alex Murdaugh.
In that particular interview, did Agent Owen mention victim advocates or any sort of grief counseling to Alex Murdaugh? Is that correct?
Yes, sir, he did.
When you're that early in an interview and you are interviewing someone who might be in the circle, as Mr. Griffin describes it, are you trying to keep your ears open?
Yes, sir, I am.
Are you trying to keep the lines of communication open?
Yes, sir, I am.
Are you going to confront somebody that early on, or are you going to try to keep the dialogue going?
Objection leading, Your Honor.
Don't lead the witness.
What is your goal when you're that early in an investigation in interviewing witnesses or potential subjects?
Again, based on what we had in this particular case, the interviews conducted with Mr. Alex was more of an information gathering type of interview. It wasn't an interrogation by no means.
You were asked about whether or not anyone dug some potential projectiles out of a mound of dirt. Were you aware that there were 300 blackout cases found around Maggie's body at the scene?
Yes, I was.
And what was your goal as finding similar evidence in other parts of the property?
Similar casings to the shell casings that were located at Miss Maggie's body.
Did you know that casings could be compared to casings which had been recovered already at the murder scene?
Yes, sir, I did.
Did you find cases outside of the side door?
Yes, sir, I did.
300 blackout cases?
Yes, sir, I did.
Did you find 300 blackout cases at the range across the street?
Yes, sir, I did.
You were asked about interviewing a number of witnesses on that day on June the 10th, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Is it common standard operating procedure to interview witnesses separately?
Yes, sir.
Is there anything different or unusual about that being done?
No, sir, it's not.
Would you do that in any case?
Yes, sir, I would.
The June 10th interview with Alex Murdaugh, who all was in that car?
It was myself, Senior Special Agent David Owen, Mr. Alex Murdaugh, and counsel.
Jim Griffin was there.
That is correct.
His lawyer was there.
That is correct.
Remind the jury what Alex Murdaugh did for a living.
He was a trial lawyer and a prosecutor for the 14th Circuit Solicitor's Office.
Was that interview aggressive in any way?
Not at all, sir.
You're asked a number of questions about various firearms evidence that was seized in this particular case. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, that is correct.
Did you personally seize every single piece of evidence, firearms-related evidence in this case?
Not personally, no, sir.
And describe just generally what the SOP is. When you have multiple agents working a scene and they find evidence, what do they do with it?
They generally will mark it or locate it, and then one particular person actually does the collection to package and make sure that it gets to our lab.
All right, and there could be multiple individuals doing that collection?
Yes, sir.
And then where does it go from there? What happens to sync it all back together?
It's generally packaged, turned over to our crime scene or an analyst at our lab. Chain of custody is provided to track that particular piece of evidence as to where it went.
Are efforts made by those collecting it to avoid tampering with the evidence?
Absolutely.
Is the evidence collected in a manner to preserve it as much as possible in its form?
Yes, sir.
Is that standard operating procedure for all of SLED?
Yes, sir.
May I have 1 minute to locate an exhibit that's in evidence?
Yes. Let's all stand for a moment.
Is this what you're looking for, Craig?
That goes out the bottom. All right, I'm going to show you what's been marked as Exhibit 145 in evidence. And can you publish what the crime scene notes reflect about where that was recovered?
It's one unfired shot shell from a state box on bookshelf and gun room, head stamped Winchester 12 gauge.
Can I ask you to take these scissors and carefully cut that open, please? Could I have the Elmo up, please, if I could as well? The Elmo, please. All right. Tell me, can you describe that, what that is to the jury, please?
It's a 12 gauge shotgun shell, head stamp Winchester 12 gauge.
All right, and does the plastic part of the shell have any identifying information?
It's got dry lock, 3-inch, number 2.
All right, can I hold that real quick? Is this what the round you were just seeing?
Yes, sir. It appears to be, yes, sir. That's, if the glare's on it, you can't hardly see it.
All right, can you put that back in that bag for me, please? All right, I'm going to hand you what's been marked and entered into evidence of States 149. And if you could, first of all, publish again what the crime scene notes say about that particular round.
Just one unfired shot shell from a state box on bookshelf and gun room, head stamped Winchester 12 gauge.
All right, and if you could, please, again, carefully open that bag and pull out what's inside and describe it for the jury, please.
It's a black and colored Winchester 12 gauge. On the side, the writing is dry lock, 3-inch, number 2.
This is the unfired 12 gauge shell that you were just describing?
Yes, sir, it is.
All right. And again, what's written on this particular round?
Dry lock, 3-inch, number 2.
If you could return that to that packaging, please, and let's do the next one. I'll hand you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 146. And again, if you could tell us what the crime scene notes say on that, please.
One unfired shot shell from Kent box on bookshelf and gun room, head stamp Winchester 12 gauge.
All right, and if you could, again, carefully open that and see what's inside and describe it for the jury, please.
It's a 12 gauge shotgun shell, Winchester head stamp, dry lock, 3-inch, number 2.
Is it the same as the previous two?
Yes, sir, it is.
Can I hold it? All right. If you'll put that one back for me. Do the fourth verse. Again, if you'd sort of publish those crime scene notes, and then we'll follow the same procedure, please.
One unfired shot shell from nightstand in Paul's room, head stamped Winchester 12 gauge.
describe it to the jury.
Head stamp Winchester 12 gauge on the side. It's got writing dry lock 3-inch, number 2s.
All right. Same thing?
Yes, sir.
All right, let's move on to the next one. I'm going to show you what's been marked as Exhibit 150 into evidence, State's Exhibit 150. And again, if you can, as best you can, tell the jury the crime scene notes on that exhibit.
It's one, and I can read shell head stamp 12 gauge, found from red bin on workshop bench. The State's exhibit tag is over the writing.
Gotcha. On workshop bench, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, if you would, carefully open that and then describe what you find to the jury, please.
It's a red in color, Federal 12 gauge shotgun shell. On the side is Federal Premium double aught buck 3-inch mag, 76 millimeter maximum, 1050 bar.
Federal buckshot?
Federal buckshot, yes, sir.
All right, can I see that?
Yes, sir.
This was found where?
On the workbench, from the red bin on the workbench.
I can't tell if that helps or not, but I'm going to try it.
You can't read it on there, sir.
I'll just walk it back to you. All right, if you could secure that back. All right, I'm going to show you now what's been marked as States 144. Let's do the same procedure. If you could tell the jury what the crime scene notes on that particular exhibit reflect.
One unfired shot shell head stamp 12 gauge Federal from red bin on workshop bench.
Okay. And if you could carefully open it and describe to the jury what you found.
It's a red in color Federal 12 gauge. Writing on the side is Federal Premium double aught buckshot double aught buck 3-inch Magnum.
All right. If you could secure that back for me, please. I'll show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 143 and have you take a look through that one, if you would, please. Good. Read what the crime scene notes say.
One unfired shot shell head stamp 12 gauge Federal from red bin on workshop bench.
All right. Again, carefully open it and describe to the jury what's inside.
It's a red in color 12 gauge Federal shotgun shell stamped on the side Federal Premium double aught buck 3-inch Magnum.
Same thing as that previous two?
Yes, sir, it is.
Federal buckshot, correct?
That is correct.
All right, if you could put that back for me. And we'll do one more. Got State's Exhibit 148. If you could, again, tell the jury what the crime scene notes reflect about its location, please.
Says one unfired shot shell head stamp 12 gauge Federal from red bin on workshop bench.
All right, if you could, carefully open it and tell the jury what What's inside?
It's a red in color, Federal 12-gauge shotgun shell. On the side writing is Federal Premium, double-aught buck, 3-inch Magnum, 3-inch mag.
Same as the previous three, is that correct?
That is correct, sir.
All right. 4 draw locks?
Yes, sir.
4 buckshot?
Yes, sir.
The draw locks are what? Brand?
They're black in color. They are Winchester,
And the buckshots are what?
Federal.
Just got a couple more questions for you. You were asked whether or not you took down any notes at any point in the interview or at a particular point in the interview.
Yes, sir.
The interview is being recorded, is that correct?
That is correct, sir.
Was Alex Murdaugh in custody at that interview?
He was not, sir.
Was that interview voluntary?
It was, sir.
Was that interview aggressive?
It was not, sir.
Was his lawyer present?
His attorney was present, sir.
And he's a lawyer too, or
Yes,
was
sir.
a lawyer?
Yes, sir.
Further recross.
Just very briefly, Your Honor. Agent Croft, you mentioned stippling with regard to the injuries of Maggie. Do you know how many bullet wounds she had that had stippling?
I know at least one bullet wound had stippling. Yes,
Just
sir.
one? That's all you remember?
Yes, sir.
All right, and then talking about on the June 10th, y'all had interviewed 100 people or more, broad investigation, but did you have anybody else in the circle on June 10th besides Alex Murdaugh?
We had names of interest that we were interviewing. Yes, sir.
And then you were asked about projectiles versus shell cartridges. Are you aware that projectiles were found? 300 blackout projectiles were found in the dog house and the dog bed?
I am aware of that now, yes, sir.
And that there's a 300 blackout projectile found in the dirt by the tire track?
Yes, sir.
So there were projectiles that were found,
That's correct, sir.
yet you're out of the range, you don't look for projectiles, right?
I was collecting the 300 blackout spent shell casings from the gun room, or not the gun room, I apologize, the shoot house.
Now you were showed a number of shot shells, buckshot, and apparently dry lock. What date were those seized?
Looks like 9/13 of 2021.
Those were seized 3 months after the murders?
Hang on a second. 9/13/2021
Okay.
is the date that's written on it.
You got June, July, August, September. 4 months after the murders.
That's correct, sir.
And do you know whether that property had been secured during that period of time?
It had not been secured by law enforcement during that period of time.
Do you know if any of that in front of you was on the property on June 7th or before?
I can own, it's It was there the date we collected it. I can't answer that other question.
And I understand you didn't collect any of that, correct?
No, sir.
And you don't know where it was collected from, other than what you're reading on the envelope, right? And you're reading someone else's evidence description, is that correct?
That is correct, sir.
That's all I have, Your Honor.
Okay, you messed up now.
Thanks, sir.
And we'll take a break now, about 10 minutes or so.
may now be seated.
Partner going in my pocket that time.
Same as Ron.
Also is.
If you bring the jury, please. All right, thank you. You may call your next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. To Reverend Mr. Conrad. State calls Anthony Nisht.
Raise your right hand, left hand on the Bible. Do you affirm the testimony you're about to give before in which trial shall be the truth, so help you God?
I do.
You need to state your name again for the record. Spell your last name, please.
My name is Michael Anthony Knitch.
Mr. Knitch, how you doing, sir?
Great, how are you?
Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Knitch.
All right. And where are you employed, sir?
Verizon Wireless.
And what are your duties there?
In this capacity, I'm a custodian of records.
All right. And so it's in its normal course of business, does Verizon keep records?
That is correct.
And does it keep call records?
That is correct.
Just generally speaking, what kind of records does Verizon keep in relation to phone accounts and call records?
Subscriber information, cellular data, which could be telephone calls, text message, data sessions.
Okay. All right, and these have been previously shown to council. I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 268. And I'm going to ask you if you recognize that, sir.
I do.
And what is that?
State's Exhibit 268 is Alex Murdaugh's telephone number, 803-942-1227.
Okay, and have you reviewed the contents of that CD?
I have.
And what is the contents of on that CD?
Subscriber information, cellular data information, text messages, anything related to billing purposes of Verizon Wireless.
Okay, and was that, were those records previously turned over to law enforcement?
In request to a search warrant, they were.
All right. And you've reviewed those records, correct?
I have.
After reviewing them, are those true and authentic copies of the records that are kept by Verizon?
They are.
And those are related to Alex Murdaugh's Verizon account, sir?
That is correct.
With the number ending in 1227?
That is correct.
All right. At this time, State moves to enter Exhibit 268 into evidence.
No objection, Your Honor.
It's admitted.
I'm going to approach and hand you State's Exhibit 269. Do you recognize that, sir?
I do.
And what is that?
State's Exhibit 269, Paul, cell phone 803-842-7845.
And have you had an opportunity to review the contents of that CD?
I have.
And what is the contents of that CD?
Cellular information, subscriber information, in response to a search warrant.
Okay. And are the contents of that CD accurate, true and accurate copies of records kept by Verizon in normal course of business?
They are.
And at this time, state would move to enter Exhibit 269 into evidence.
No objection, Your Honor.
Submit it.
And I'm going to hand you, this is Exhibit 265, so a little bit out of order. And do you recognize that, sir?
I do.
What is that?
State's Exhibit 265, Maggie, cell phone 803-842-9041.
Have you had an opportunity to review the contents of that CD?
I have
What are the contents of the CD?
subscriber information, cellular data information in response to a search warrant.
All right, and that's in relation to the number associated with Paul, is that correct?
Maggie,
Or, excuse me, yes, Maggie. And what's the last 4 digits of that number?
9041.
All right, and that's Exhibit 265, correct?
That is correct.
All right, and at this time, state will move to enter Exhibit 265 into evidence.
No objection, Your Honor.
I'm going to approach, and I'm going to hand you what's labeled as State's Exhibit 262. Do you recognize that, sir?
I do.
And without reading any phone number, full phone number, what is that?
State's Exhibit 262, Claude Rowe records.
All right. And have you had an opportunity to review the contents of that CD?
I have
And what are the contents of that CD?
subscriber information, cellular data information in response to a search warrant.
All right. And those are related to the account associated with Claude Rowe, correct?
That is correct.
And there is a phone number associated, we're just not going to read it in the record, is that correct?
That is correct.
At this time, and what number is that?
State's Exhibit 262.
This time, state will move to enter Exhibit 262 into evidence.
No objection.
Submit it.
I'm going to approach and hand you State's Exhibit 263. Do you recognize that, sir?
I do.
And what is that?
State's Exhibit 263, Marty Cook.
All right. And is there a phone number associated with that without reading it?
There is.
And that's a Verizon phone number, correct?
That is correct.
What are the contents of that CD?
Subscriber information, cellular data information in response to a search
And
warrant.
you've had an opportunity to review that, correct?
I have.
And those are a copy of the same records that were provided to law enforcement pursuant to a search warrant. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right. And what number was that again?
State's Exhibit 263.
All right. This time, state will need to enter Exhibit 263 into evidence.
I'm sorry, I couldn't. Whose number is that?
State's Exhibit 263, what's the name on that account?
Marty Cook.
No objection.
Submit it.
All right, I'm going to hand you State's Exhibit 264. And do you recognize that, sir?
I do.
And what is that, sir?
State's Exhibit 264, Rogan.
All right, and is there a phone number associated with that?
There is.
All right, and we're not going to read that into the record, but have you had an opportunity to review the contents of that CD?
I have.
And what are the contents of that CD?
Subscriber information, cellular data information in response to a search warrant.
All right, and the contents of that CD are a accurate copy of the original records provided by Verizon to law enforcement pursuant to search warrant?
They are.
Okay. All right, and that's Exhibit 264, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, at this time, state will move to enter Exhibit 264 into evidence.
No objection.
Submit it.
I hand to you is marked as State's Exhibit 266. Do you recognize that, sir?
I do.
And what is that?
State's Exhibit 266, Connor Cook records.
And is there a Verizon associate and account associated with those, with Connor Cook?
There is.
Have you had an opportunity to review the contents of that CD?
I have.
And what is the contents of that CD?
Subscriber information, cellular data information in response to a search warrant.
All right, and that's a true and accurate copy of the records originally provided by Verizon to law enforcement pursuant to search warrant?
That is correct.
All right. And what's that number you have again?
State's Exhibit 266.
All right, this time, state will move to enter Exhibit 266 into evidence.
No objection.
Get it?
And last one, this is State's Exhibit 267. I'm going to hand this to you. Do you recognize that, sir?
I do.
Do you recognize that?
I do.
All right, and what is that?
State's Exhibit 267, Buster cellular information.
And there's a number and a Verizon account associated with Buster's phone records.
That is correct.
We're not going to read that number to the record, but have you had an opportunity to review the contents of that CD?
I have.
All right, and what is the contents of that CD?
Subscriber information, cellular data information in response to a search warrant.
All right, and is that an accurate copy of the records originally provided by Verizon to law enforcement in response to a search warrant?
They are.
All right. And what number do you have? What number is that again?
State's Exhibit 267.
All right, at this time, state will move to enter Exhibit 267 in evidence.
No objection.
Submit it.
I'm going to hand you, this is marked as on the back, as State's Exhibit 270. Do you recognize that, sir?
I do.
And what is that?
This would be a key that is used to explain the faulty call detail with cell site explanation.
And is that originally come from a PDF provided with each of these search warrant returns?
That is correct.
And so that document will be found on each of those CDs, correct?
That is correct.
All right, and this is just a printed out version.
That is correct.
But it is exactly similar to the explainer on, contained on those CDs, correct?
Yes, sir.
And at this time, state would move to Exhibit 270 into evidence.
No objection.
Submit it.
All right, sir, so let's talk about that document you have in your hands. I think you told us kind of what it is, but can you give us a little more detail? What does that do, and how does that help someone looking at these records?
In response to a search warrant, Verizon provides a key to be able to read the records that were provided. So this particular record is a faulty call detail record key.
Okay, all right. I'm going to take this to you, and I think the Elmo is still up. We need the Elmo up, please. Okay. So looking at Exhibit 270, State's Exhibit 270, we see several columns of information across that. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Can you read from your screen there, sir? Can you read some of that information?
Yes, sir. The first column is record open date and time. The second, would you like for me to read across?
Well, let's lay a little more foundation. The records that are provided on those CDs, and they're digital format, correct?
That is correct.
And what program are they sent in?
Excel.
Okay, Excel format. That's a spreadsheet, correct?
That is correct.
And so when we look at these records, they're all provided in columns in an Excel spreadsheet, correct?
That is correct.
And each column going left to right is a different sort of information that is on the records, correct?
That is correct.
All right. And so we'll look at an example in a few minutes, but this is the key to look at to understand what each column is in reference to, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So let's look at the far left column, and I believe that says record open date time. What does that mean, sir?
That would be the date and time the call record transpired in local time.
In local time, okay. And what's the second column from the left?
That would be the date and time the call transpired in Greenwich Mean Time.
Okay. And Greenwich Mean Time is that also known as universal time?
That is correct.
And on June 7th of 2021, do you know the approximate offset for local time and Eastern time with Greenwich Mean Time? Would it surprise you if I said it was 4 hours difference?
That is correct.
Okay. All right, okay, going to the third from the left column, what is that?
That is the serving system ID.
And what does that mean?
That's a network name on Verizon from which the call transpired.
Okay. And what is the column next to that? I believe it's labeled NID.
That would be the switch number that Verizon uses to route.
Okay. And what is a switch, generally speaking?
It would be what's considered a hub for multi-cell towers.
Okay. So multiple cell towers be connected to one switch.
That is correct.
And then going next, cell ID, what is that column?
That would be the specific cell tower that the target number used to make the cellular data connection.
Okay. And that's the actual tower that a particular call was routed to, correct?
That is correct.
And the next column says cell face. What is that? What does that mean?
Would be the cell face that the cellular data connection transpired over. There's typically 3 faces on each cell tower.
Okay. And next we see market ID. What is that?
That's fair. That is the switch number. So in some records it'll have that listed. So it's the same thing as the NID, but depending on the specific record, which column will be used.
Okay. And then the next column says ENB. What is that?
It's a 6-digit cell tower number. The first 3 digits is the market ID, and the last 3 digits is the tower identification.
Okay. Next column says DIR. What does that show for, and what does it mean?
That's the direction that the call transpired over the Verizon network.
When you say direction, you mean incoming call or outgoing call? That sort of direction, not north, south, east, or west, right?
That is correct.
All right. The next column says NSISBN. What does that mean, sir?
That is the Verizon subscriber number that the record is for.
Okay. And it says this is your target number, and that's in reference to the search warrant, correct?
That is correct.
And so when a search warrant asks for records for a certain number, that's the target number, correct?
That is correct.
And that's what that column identifies, correct?
That is correct.
And the next column says call number. What does that mean?
This is the number dialed to initiate the call. For inbound calls, this number will be the same as the mobile directory number, MSISDN column, and the out calls, this is the number your target dialed.
Okay. So simplifying it, it's simply the number that was called when someone placed a phone call, correct?
That is correct.
Next column is CPN. What is that, sir?
This is the calling party number that initiated the call. If the call is outbound, this column will be the same as the mobile directory number, MSISDN. If the call is inbound, this is a number that dialed your target.
Okay. And the next column says SOU. What is that, sir?
Seconds of duration.
Okay. And that's how long the call lasted, correct?
That is correct.
And the next column says RAT. What does that mean, sir?
That is the type of cellular connection that the data session or call transpired over.
And so we see several different categories underneath that. I see a 3G voice, 4G voice, and some others. What does that stuff mean?
The Verizon wireless technology that's used to allow that call to take place.
Okay. So 3G and 4G are different types of technology Verizon uses?
That is correct.
And depending on which tower and where the phone is located, it could be, a call could be routed over 3G or 4G. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Getting pretty close to the end here. The next column says VICE endpoints. What does that mean, sir?
It's a VoLTE connection with an endpoint, so that's a type of device that can boost the Verizon signal. It's an indicator if that was used or not.
Okay. And VO, you call it VoLTE. What is that?
Voice over LTE is a type of technology similar to the 4G.
Okay. And that's a voice call that's routed over the digital network, correct?
That is correct.
And finally, we see VZWNE, network extender, excuse me. What is that column, sir?
That is a device that allows consumers to connect to a network extender to boost their indoor coverage. So there'd be a difference in the call type listed in the records.
So Verizon provides, to certain customers, network extenders for them to use in buildings to help them connect calls in buildings. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And if a call were routed through such a connector, it would be listed in that column.
That is correct.
Okay, I'd like to switch over to the laptop, please. I'm going to hand you back Exhibit 270 in case you need to look at it here. All right. And I'm going to pull up some of the records that were provided that we just talked about on those CDs. And the first one I'm going to pull up is the one associated with Maggie Murdaugh, and her number ends in 9041. And I believe that comes from exhibit. That's State's Exhibit 265. And let me get rid of the annoying. Okay, so we're going to scroll down, and we're going to talk about a couple of these calls just so the jury understands or can understand some of these records. And I went too far. Bear with me, please. Okay, I've highlighted column 1846 on this spreadsheet. Can you see that, sir?
I can.
Okay. So let's walk through this particular call. All right. The far left column A, we see a number there. What is that number, sir?
That's the phone number that was associated with the search warrant.
Okay. And that's the 9041 number, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. In column B, I see a date. It says May 1st of 21. What is that date, sir?
That was the date that the search warrant started the request for the search warrant.
Okay. So when law enforcement sent a search warrant to Verizon, they requested a record starting on May 1st. Is that correct?
That is correct.
May 1st, 2021. And then the next column says June 10th of 2021. What is that date, sir?
That is the last day that was requested on the search warrant.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So in this case, June 10th was the last date from that search warrant.
That is correct.
All right. Okay, so let's look at column D. And what is column D in this record?
That is the time that the actual call took place in local time.
Okay. And what time is that?
19:50 and 20 seconds.
All right. Can you convert military to civilian time? Are you good at it?
I am not good at it.
Okay. So generally you subtract 12, is that correct?
That is correct.
So would that be 7:50 p.m.?
That is correct.
Okay. All right. And then the next column, we see it says June 7, 2021 at 23:50. What is that column?
That's the record in Greenwich Mean Time.
All right. And so that's in the universal time, correct?
That is correct.
And can you convert that to local time? Well, subtracting 12, would it be
It would be
11:50 p.m.?
50 p.m.
All right. Next column, there's a digit that says 13. What is that digit, sir?
Can you scroll to the top where I can see the header on that?
And we're looking at column I.
That is the cell face number.
right, and so that is the direction off of, based off what you previously testified, that is the direction the call is in the sector from the tower, correct?
That is correct.
Scroll back down. Bear with me, please. Okay, we're back on June 7th, and we're back at column 1846. So we just said the 13 was the direction from the tower, correct?
That is correct.
All right, and so we see a number next to that that says 459. What is that number, sir?
That is the market ID.
Okay. And that, and market ID, again, what does that mean?
That would be the switch on Verizon Wireless Network.
Okay. All right. And then next to that is column K, and that says, there's a digit that says 459240. What is that, sir?
That is the ENID. The first three digits are the switch. The second three digits are the cell tower information.
Okay. And so that identifies the actual tower that call was routed through, correct?
That is correct.
And then next to that, in column L, we see MO. What does that mean, sir?
Mobile originated.
All right. And what does that mean?
The cell phone in question to the search warrant originated the call.
So this means this call is placed with Maggie's phone, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And then next to that, we see a phone number in column M, and it ends in 9041. Is that the target a phone number?
That is correct.
And next to that, we see a number that ends in 0853. What is that in column M?
That was the number that 9041 dialed.
Okay. And then column O, and we see that 9041 number again. And remind us what that number's there again?
That was the number that dialed the 0853.
Okay. And then next column on P, we see 165, a digit of 165. What does that mean?
That is time in seconds.
Okay, so that's how long the call lasted?
That is correct.
And then column Q, it says LTE. What does that mean?
That's the Verizon technology type that was used to make the call.
Okay, so this call is routed over LTE, correct?
That is correct.
And that's a 4G technology?
That is correct.
Okay. So let's look at the column below that, and that's column 1847. And let's just go ahead and look directly at column D, and that's the date where it says 2021-680104-24. Remind us again what that column means.
Which column?
Column D, and we see the date of June 8th of 2021, and there's a time that says 010424.
That is the time in Greenwich Mean Time.
Okay. Now, you previously testified that in column D, that time's normally provided in local time. Is that correct?
That is correct.
But in this particular record, we see a time in Greenwich Mean Time, correct?
That is correct.
Why is this, in this particular call, why is it in Greenwich Mean Time?
Because this call connected to Verizon, but the call was not answered on the cellular connection and routed to voicemail.
Okay. So, because this call was not picked up, the call is routed to Verizon server, right?
That is correct.
And because of that, Verizon records the record in Greenwich Mean Time.
That is correct.
But I hate to do this. Let's convert that back into local time. So subtract 4 from 010424. And with that, would yield a time of 9:04:24 in Eastern Time, sir.
That would be correct.
Okay. PM, correct?
That's correct.
All right, well, let's skip over column I, column J, and column K. I believe you said previously column K was the digit associated with the particular power I called routed through, correct?
That is correct.
Well, here we see in this one NA. Is that what that says?
That is correct.
What does that mean? Why does it say NA?
Well, the call didn't actually connect to a cell tower. When the call didn't answer and it routed to voicemail, it's an internal routing, so there would be no cellular data as far as cell tower information provided.
Okay, so a call was placed to the 9041 number, correct?
That is correct.
And the 901 phone most likely rang, correct?
That is correct.
But no one answered.
That is correct.
And so Verizon did not record a particular cell tower associated with that call. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right, let's finish up with this record. Column M, again, that's the target number, correct? 9041.
That is correct.
All right, and then we see in column N, as in November, 9041, again, the same number. And what does that mean?
That means the 1227 number dialed the 9041.
Okay. All right, and no one answered, correct?
That is correct.
I skipped over column L, it says MT, and what does that mean?
Mobile terminated.
Okay, and so that call was not in fact completed, correct?
It was forwarded to voicemail.
Okay, all right. And after that 9:04 PM phone call, we see multiple more calls to Maggie's phone, correct? Or correct?
That is correct.
All right. And are any of those calls answered according to the records that Verizon keeps?
They are not.
All right, I'm going to shift to pulling up the call records for the number ending in 1227. And that is State's Exhibit 268, and that's the number associated with Alex Murdaugh's phone, correct?
That is correct.
All right, bear with me. Okay, and let's look at column 2371. All right, you see that on your screen, sir?
Yes, sir.
All right, and we see a time, and column D, and that says June 7th, 2021, 21:04:24. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And this time is in local time, is that correct?
That is correct.
And the quick conversion on that, or excuse me, so no conversion is necessary on that. So that's 9:04 PM and 24 seconds, correct?
That is correct.
And that is in fact the same time that we just saw in Maggie's records that we just reviewed, correct?
That is correct.
All right. And so we see, if we look over in column I, J, and K, we do have cell tower information for the outgoing call from Alex's phone, correct?
That is correct.
All right. And then we see that this is code MO, and what does MO mean again?
Mobile originated.
So that means this account is placing the call, correct?
That is correct.
The account ending in 1227. All right. And it was placed to the number ending in 9041, correct?
That is correct.
All right. And then looking below that, we're not going to review this line by line, but we see a number of other calls starting at about 9:04 PM and onward over the next hour or two of calls made from the 1227 account, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. All right. No further questions from the state, this witness.
By the defense.
He's looking for, I apologize, the technology's about with me here. So you work for Verizon,
That is correct.
and are you just deliver records to different people, or do you have a more, I say the word functional, but do you have a duties beyond just coming to court and delivering records?
Yes, sir. I work in executive relations, and I respond to subpoenas, other court records, and other type of cases that are associated with the executive relations team.
And obviously you have to have some understanding of what you're delivering, what these things mean, right?
That is correct.
And as I understand it, I'm going to ask you in a minute what some things mean. So do you see, is this on? Can you see that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So if you look down, any way to put that up there? No. Okay, never mind. So if you look down at 6, 7, and if you look at, I'm trying to find some consistency here, those NAs in lines I and J on several calls above that, you see those?
I do.
What does that mean?
That means that the call was routed to voicemail.
So these are voicemails to Alec.
This record is for 1227. So based off of this record, 1227.
So like that call that
Dialed the 9041, but it was routed to voicemail.
Okay, that's him dialing out. But what about if you go up to 6, 7 at 2208? Is that a call out or a call in?
Is that the line that you have highlighted?
No, I'm talking about go up to 6, 7, maybe go highlight. Okay.
Which one is this?
6, this one, either one of these right here. Right, yeah, that's fine. Is that an outgoing or ingoing call? Incoming call?
That was mobile forwarded, so it was forwarded to voicemail.
I get it's forwarded to voicemail. Was Alec making it or somebody else was making it? Who initiated the call?
The 7845.
7845. So that was a call into Alec.
That is
and it went
correct.
to his voicemail.
That is correct.
And tell me where I look on this to see what's outgoing and what's incoming.
Row L, or column L, MO, MT, and MF.
Okay. Okay, so MO means what?
Mobile originated.
He's the originating call.
That is correct.
Okay. What was the other one? MT, what does that mean?
Mobile terminated.
So he was getting an incoming call.
That is correct.
And MF,
Mobile forwarded.
what does that mean?
Routed to voicemail.
So there's two of them all of them mean voicemail, but what's the difference between MT, MO, and MF?
The direction of the call on Verizon's network.
Okay. Mobile terminated is he was making a call and it went to voicemail. MO is whoever called them initiated the call and went to voicemail.
No, MO means the cellular subscriber in response to this search warrant made a phone call out.
M-O. So that would be Alex calling somebody who went to voicemail.
Correct.
MT is somebody called him and it went to voicemail.
Mobile terminated means that our subscriber in response to the search warrant is the one that the call placed to and could have answered.
And so one of them's coming in, goes to voicemail, another one's going out, goes to voicemail. And MF is what?
No, sir. MO means mobile originated, a phone call transpired over our network. So we could have answered the phone call, it would show up as MO.
We being who? Yeah, on this, if Alec had answered the phone call, it would have,
It would be mobile terminated because our subscriber answered the phone call.
oh, okay. So MO, he answers it. Am I losing are you losing me or am I losing you?
MO is mobile originated. So that means subscriber 1227 dialed out on Verizon's network.
Okay, and it was answered.
It could have been answered, yes. I mean, it was a call that transpired and it would create a cellular connection which would connect to a cell tower.
Okay, and it wasn't answered by voicemail,
Which record?
the MO.
MO is mobile originated, which
I got
means-
that. I got that part. I just want to know how you differentiate between these calls as one's going out, one's coming in, one's going to voicemail, either way.
MF is mobile forwarding. So
Right.
that call would have went to voicemail.
Whether he was getting it or giving it. Whether
Well,
it was
if
making-
someone were calling him
Right,
and he didn't answer, then it would be forwarded to voicemail.
that's MF.
That is correct.
Okay, I got it. I finally get it. Took me a while. But again, I'm not a technological expert here. So, as you look at his calls, to the extent that they are made at certain times, you can figure out whether it was coming, going, or went to voicemail based on these records.
That is correct.
Now, can I see Maggie's phone? Just a second, please.
Is there any time yours?
Yeah, let's look at 6, 7, put 6, 7 up high. So we went below 6, 7.
Okay, so these are all calls. 6, 7.
And these are her phone calls starting at 7:02. And when we get down to, so tell me after that 7:02 PM, 23:02, that's, when is everything after that? Well, does she, when is the first time her phone goes to voicemail?
The 2340 call went to voicemail. Then the next call log after that is a mobile originated, which means there were 2 outbound calls made. And then after those 2 calls, the rest of the calls were routed to mobile telephone number 9041's voicemail.
What's the last time she made a call out?
$19.50.
What time
20.
is that in non-military time? 1950 is? What? 7 PM? 7:50 PM. That's the last call she makes out, right?
That is correct.
What about the last call she received and answered?
Well, the 2 calls that were mobile originated, after that, the rest of them were routed to voicemail.
Yeah, but what are the two calls after that?
Could you please highlight?
It's complicated, I know, even for you.
Which one are you pointing at?
Any,
Talking about this one?
I don't know. So we were up here at 7:02, right? And then
Those are all outbound calls.
from her. Yeah, and the last one is at 80. At 7:50, okay.
That's connected, yeah.
Okay. And was there any inbound that was answered after 7:50?
There were not.
Okay, and one other thing. Just take that 7:50 and put it up at the top. Scroll, in other words, I want to see the calls after that, okay? And this end, no, okay, that's okay. So, now go back down a little bit. Matter of fact, let's start with 6:09. Okay, can you scroll that up to the top? So how about look at this for 6:09 and 6:10, and it stops at 6:10. Are there any outgoing or incoming or, in other words, any outgoing call, first of all, from that phone after on 6:09?
Mobile telephone number 9041 did not place a call outgoing.
Okay, what about any incoming calls?
The rest of the records are incoming calls that were routed to voicemail.
Voicemail, so the calls coming into her that routed to voicemail, no calls after on 6:09 or further.
That
Okay,
is
now,
correct.
let me ask you this, text messages, are they shown on these records? You charge for them, right?
They are in a separate record, yes.
Were you asked to produce those?
They are in the file.
They're in the file. It's just, we're not looking at them here today.
That is correct.
And are they reflected on this kind of same format?
Very similar. They have a separate key to translate exactly what each column and row means.
Okay. But you've produced those text messages for all the phones we've talked about here today.
That is correct.
Were any other phone records subpoenaed from you other than the ones that have been put into evidence?
The only ones that I'm aware of is the ones that I have been, I received the records of.
Did you ask for more records than these?
I did not.
Did the search warrant designate records other than these?
We would have to review the search warrant.
You don't have it with you?
No, sir.
Okay. Beg the court's indulgence for just a moment. What's the data retention policy for Verizon? How long do these records stick around?
Verizon maintains records for billing purposes for around 18 months. In response to a subpoena or search warrant, we do keep the detailed records on file for those search warrants.
But absent somebody serving a search warrant, after 18 months they're purged.
We no longer have that information on file typically.
Does anybody have them?
I mean, the billing information would be available like through My Verizon where you could go and look at your bill.
But this kind of information would not.
That is correct.
Okay, and when you indicate these calls went to voicemail, how long does a phone ring before it kicks into voicemail?
There's no set time.
Who sets it?
Well, it depends on how long it takes the network to locate the call. So when you hear a ring, when you're dialing someone, it's really just the network trying to locate. So the phone itself may never ring if the network can't find you.
And that may take 2 or 3 or 4 rings?
It could take 2, 3, up to 6.
So when my wife accuses me of being impatient and hanging up on her before she gets to answer the phone, you just told me it's because the network, in many instances, has not connected with her phone yet.
The network is locating your phone. When you hear the ringing, the network is locating where you are on the
And that
network.
could take a while, and so if I'm hearing 5 rings and figure she's not going to answer it, I don't want to leave a voicemail, I hang up. And so there's no voicemail, it's just an incomplete call on your records.
Well, I mean, if she didn't answer your phone call and let it go to voicemail, then it would ring out if the network.
Maybe I don't
found you.
want to leave a voicemail, it's rang 4 or 5 times, and I hang up before she can get to the phone.
Sure.
That solves a mystery. Thank you.
All right.
One quick question, Your Honor. Just to clarify, when the Verizon records indicate that a call is routed to voicemail, I believe you previously testified that could mean the phone itself rang, correct?
That is correct.
But there's another condition the phone could be in as well. If the phone is turned off and someone dials that number, what would the Verizon record indicate?
It would route to voicemail.
And it would look exactly the same, correct?
Yes.
And there's no way to look at these records and tell whether a phone is off, just not answering, or potentially shut off or otherwise not connected to the network, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. That's all from the statement. Thank you, Your Honor.
What about if it's in airplane mode? Would the same thing happen? Goes to voicemail, right? Airplane mode, it doesn't ring, doesn't answer. It goes, would it go to voicemail?
The network would still try to find where you're located, so if you're in airplane mode, the network may not know where you are, so it would still attempt to ring.
And these records don't give you any GPS location on phones, correct? You can't get that GPS.
According to the records that I've seen, they have the cell tower information, but not the specific GPS.
Cell tower information, depending on how many cells are connecting it, sometimes, I mean, can be very, if you're in New York City and there are 5 cell towers, you can probably get it pretty close. But if you're in rural Colleton County or Hampton County, and there's one over here and maybe one way back there, it's much more difficult to find a specific location, correct?
Your Honor, the state's going to object. This witness is not qualified and expert on cell tower location.
You can say I'm not qualified to answer that.
Yes, sir.
That information,
Comment. Response if you want.
Senator, he can answer whether he's able to answer the question. However, he's not qualified as an expert.
I don't.
All right. You may answer the question if you can.
I would have no way of knowing. I'm not qualified as far as the triangulation of the cell tower information.
Is that what you were getting ready to say before he objected and said you weren't qualified, or is that something you
That
really
would be
are
a
qualified?
standard
You've never
response.
testified about location before.
Repeat the question.
You've never testified about what cell phone tower location means and how it's used.
I testified to the accuracy of the records that were provided.
Okay, thank you.
Step down, thank you. Call your next witness.
State calls Paul Manigal.
Raise your right hand. You affirm the testimony about to give the court in this trial shall be the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Please state your name for the record. Spell your last name loudly, please.
Paul David McManigal, MC, MANIGAL.
Good morning, Mr. McManigal.
Good afternoon.
Oh, good afternoon, excuse me. Where are you currently employed, sir?
I am currently employed as a sergeant with the Charleston County Sheriff's Office.
All right, and what are your duties there entail?
I'm currently assigned to the United States Secret Service as a task force officer on the cyber fraud task force.
All right. And generally, in your work on the cybercrimes task force, what does that entail?
I'm a digital forensic examiner, so I'm responsible for gathering electronic data from computers, tablets, cell phones, DVRs, vehicle infotainment systems.
All right. And when you say task force officer for the state, for the Secret Service is a federal agency, is that correct?
That is correct.
But you're actually paid and are still an officer with the Charleston County Sheriff's Office, is that correct?
That's also correct.
Okay. In this case, you provided some records in June of 2021 by an individual by the name of Dylan Hightower, is that correct?
That is correct.
And what did he provide you?
He provided me with a electronic extraction from a cell phone that was extracted as binary data and not yet processed by forensic software.
All right. And when he provided that to you, did he tell you which phone it was from?
I believe he said it was belonged to Alex Murdaugh.
Okay. And that's the one he extracted from Alex Murdaugh on June 10th of 2021?
That is correct.
And what did you do with that information that he provided you, with that data?
I was asked to redact potential client lawyer privileged information by reducing it down to a certain time frame that was more pertinent to the case and potentially reducing any privileged communication.
And did you make the decision of what to remove and what not to remove personally?
I did not. The decision of what to remove was made by Price Summer with the Ninth Circuit Solicitor's Office.
And she's an attorney?
She is an attorney.
All right. And you then produced a redacted copy of the digital evidence, is that correct?
That is correct.
You provided that back to Dylan Hightower?
That is correct.
Did you provide any further analysis to the data itself?
I did not.
Did you redact any call logs from that data you provided?
Call logs were not redacted at all.
All right. Let's move on. You've also been involved in one other aspect of this case. I'm sure it's been marked as State's Exhibit 299. Do you recognize that, sir?
I do.
What is it?
This is a chain of custody form from the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division, which we commonly refer to as SLED.
All right. And do you see any handwriting on there that is yours?
I do.
All right. And what date did you sign that form?
June 9th, 2021.
Okay. And that form is related to what phone exactly?
There was a Apple iPhone 11 that was collected and brought to me by Special Agent Ryan Kelly with SLED.
Okay. And was that phone locked when he provided it to you?
It was.
All right. And did you, in your forensic investigation, did you attempt to unlock the phone?
I did.
Were you successful?
I was not.
And is that Paul's phone?
I believe it was, yes, sir.
All right. And at this time, State would move to Exhibit 299 to evidence.
No objection, Your Honor.
And I'm going to hand you what's been marked, excuse me. hand you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 274. This is going to be for ID purposes only. Let me ask you if you recognize that, sir.
I do.
And what is that?
This is the iPhone 11 that was brought to me by Special Agent Ryan Kelly, the SLED.
And that's the phone you attempted to unlock but were unsuccessful, correct?
That is correct.
All right. And I believe on that bag there's an orange sticker. Do you see that, sir?
Yes, sir, I do.
What is that orange sticker?
This is a sticker I place on devices that I have attempted to process or processed successfully.
Okay. And at this time, State's going to move to put this in as ID only.
Objection, ID only, Your Honor.
This time, I'm going to hand you State's Exhibit 298. You recognize that, sir?
Yes, sir, I do.
What is that?
This is also a chain of custody report from the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division, SLED.
All right. And do you recognize your signature on that form, sir?
I do.
What date, did you sign that?
This is August 12th, 2021.
And what does that form signify?
This is the date I returned the phone to Special Agent Kelly.
And at this time, State would move to place Exhibit 298.
Objection, Your Honor.
And so you attempted to unlock Paul's phone, correct?
That is correct.
And you were unsuccessful.
That is also correct.
Did you alter in any other way the data that was on Paul's phone during that time?
No, sir.
No further questions, Ms. State.
Cross-examination.
Good afternoon, sir. My name is Philip Barber. I'm one of the attorneys for Mr. Murdaugh.
Good afternoon.
I really just have one question. When you received this phone, was the battery completely dead?
The phone was powered off when I received it.
Did you charge the phone after you received it?
I did.
But do you know whether or not it was completely dead, battery dead? When you
I
received
do not recall if the battery was completely drained.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Anything further?
None from the State.
Thank you. You may step down.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Call your next witness.
Please call. State calls John Van Alden.
Raise your right hand and left hand on top. You affirm the testimony about to give the court in this trial shall be the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Take a seat and stand. State your name again for the record. Spell your last name.
Jonathan Van Houten, V-A-N-H-O-U-T-E-N.
Mr. Van Alden. Where are you employed, sir?
United States Secret Service.
All right. And how long are you employed there?
This April will be 3 years.
All right. And are you currently a law enforcement agent?
I am not.
Okay. And you're a civilian employee of Secret Service?
I am.
All right. But you do have a background in law enforcement, correct?
Yes, I retired after 21 years with the Columbia Police Department as an investigator. For the last 10 years, I was assigned as a digital forensic examiner with the U.S. Secret Service.
Okay. And you were a task force officer
Correct.
during that time?
Yes.
And you retired from the Columbia Police Department when?
April 20th, 2020.
And in this case, you were provided a phone by, I believe, Britt Dove. Is that correct?
Lieutenant Dove, correct.
I'm going to show you State's Exhibit 271. I want to see if you recognize this document, sir.
This is the SLED law enforcement, or Stock County Law Enforcement Division chain of custody that was submitted to me by Lieutenant Dove.
And do you recognize your signature on that form?
I did sign this form.
What day did you sign that form?
March 21st, 2022.
Okay. All right. At this time, State would move Exhibit 271 to evidence.
No objection, Your Honor.
Admitted.
Okay, I'm going to hand you State's Exhibit 272. Let me see if you recognize that, sir.
This is an evidence photo that I acquired of the device that was submitted to me.
You took that picture?
I did.
And do we see a sticker on the back of that phone?
There is a yellow sticker on the phone.
What is it? Can you read that sticker, please?
It appears to be some type of case number, evidence number, identified as an Apple iPhone, the model number with a SIM, and an agency case number.
And if you just read the case number and the item number.
7021-0204, item number 10.
Thank you, sir. So at this time, State moves Exhibit 272 in evidence.
Okay.
All right. So I believe you said March 29th of 2022 is when Lieutenant Dove advised you that phone, sir?
March 21st.
Excuse me, yes, 21st. All right. And why did he bring it to you?
It's my understanding that the phone was locked, and SLED requested assistance of the Secret Service to unlock the device.
And at Secret Service, at that time, did you have tools available that could potentially unlock that phone?
Yes.
And did SLED have those tools, at least on that date?
At that time, they did not.
Okay. All right. And what tool did you use to attempt to unlock that phone?
For this, for my unlock attempt, I used a tool called Celebrite Premium.
Okay. And Cellbite Premium is a way to potentially break into, locked phones, correct?
That is the only use for that tool.
And just generally speaking, how does Cellbrite Premium attempt to unlock a locked phone?
It uses its proprietary software in an attempt to brute force the device.
Okay, what does brute force mean?
Brute force is if we don't have the code, we will attack the device, attack the data on the device to try to brute force the passcode to get the code for it to unlock the device.
And a device that's locked, why does it need to be unlocked for you to access the data? What underlying condition exists that prevents you from seeing the data?
Well, for Apple iPhone devices, there are two types of locks. There are before first unlock and after first unlock. Before first unlock is the phone is either powered down, it's been turned off and rebooted, or a code has been entered in too many times incorrectly. If you were to, an analogy for it, if you think of it as a bank vault, it is the before first unlock at which we have to brute force the device is like the big steel door.
Okay. And that underlying data is encrypted, correct? Otherwise?
Yes.
Okay. And you would not be able to read that data, correct?
I have to unlock the device to get to the data to decrypt it.
Okay. And so Cellbrite Premium, you said, attempted to do a brute force unlock, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And ultimately, was that attempt successful?
It was successful because I generated a predefined dictionary to attempt first prior to the tool using its own dictionary.
Okay. And what do you mean by that? What does that mean?
Well, humans are creatures of habit. They like to use numbers that are relevant to them. Most people will use their date of birth, an anniversary, a child's birth, the death of a parent as the access code. So what we do generally is we get as many social engineered codes or dates that are relevant to the particular phone that we will attempt first. Once that attempt is no longer viable, the tool will use its own dictionary to start a hardcore brute force process.
And absent kind of getting lucky with a preceded number, if the Cellbrite Premium has to brute force its way through and unlock a phone, how long would that take?
So for a 4-digit phone, if you had a 4-digit numeric PIN code, we're limited to an attempt of 146, maybe 145 attempts per day. So a 4-digit code has a maximum possible numeric value of 10,000 attempts. So at 146 attempts a day, it will roughly take a little over 2 months to 68 days to unlock that phone. Adding 2 extra numbers to a 6-digit, going from a 4-digit to a 6-digit, there are approximately 1 million possibilities now. At 146 attempts per day, it could take upwards 19 years.
All right. Now, you said that you could only do 146 attempts a day, is that correct?
Based on technology at the time and current technology, technology is progressing, so it is getting faster.
Okay. Why is the software limited to just 146 attempts a day?
This is a security protocol chip built into Apple. It limits the time frame that somebody can attempt to brute force a device. The first is, it's an average of 1 attempt every 15 minutes.
All right. But ultimately, you said you seeded several numbers into Cellbrite Premium to give it some potential guesses first before just start going through all the other numbers, correct?
Yes. Once I start the brute force process, there's an option for me to enter my own dictionary or numbers that are relevant, that I think is relevant to the user of the device. In this case, I entered a number that successfully unlocked the phone rather quickly.
Okay. And what was that number associated with?
I believe the number was associated with the date of birth of Paul Murdaugh.
Okay. All right. And so once you successfully unlocked the phone, what did you do with it, sir?
I notified Lieutenant Dove that the phone successfully unlocked. I advised him that I was going to be getting a full file system extraction since I still had the phone in my possession. Lieutenant Dove provided me with an external hard drive to place the extraction on, at which time I did.
So you did a full file extraction and placed it on a hard drive, correct?
Correct.
Now, did you examine the contents of that full file extraction?
I did not. SLED has their own examiners. We did the extraction for them, but they analyzed the phone.
And so the data you placed on a hard drive and provided to Rick Dove, is that substantially the exact same data that you extracted from Paul's phone?
It is.
Okay. Is it changed in any significant manner?
It has not.
I'm going to hand you State's Exhibit 273. Do you recognize that document, sir?
This is the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division chain of custody where I returned the phone to Lieutenant Dove.
All right. And do you recognize your signature on there?
I do.
All right. And what date did you sign that?
March 24th, 2022.
All right. And you then provided Paul's phone back to Lieutenant Dove, correct?
Correct.
At this time, State would move to enter Exhibit 273 into evidence.
Submitted.
Okay, and I'm going to show you what's been marked as ID. I believe this is 274. Do you recognize that item, sir?
Yes, this is the phone I received.
Okay, and that sticker on the back?
It matches the photograph that I took.
The photograph we put in evidence, the sticker on his phone matches that, correct?
It does.
Okay. All right, one last question, Mr. Van Houten. There have been a couple questions about Faraday bags in this trial. What is a Faraday bag, sir?
A Faraday bag is basically what it is a bag that shields electronic signals from entering or exiting the bag.
Okay. And what is the danger, by placing a phone in a Faraday bag, what is the danger you're trying to prevent?
We're attempting to prevent a remote wipe or remote destruction of the data on the device.
Once law enforcement takes a phone into evidence or custody, are there other ways to prevent a remote light?
Absolutely. Powering the phone down completely, not leaving it plugged to a charger, removing the SIM card, or the easiest is to place the phone in the airplane mode. It'll disable the cellular data and the Wi-Fi signal.
And you said that the danger is the phone could be remote light.
Yes, somebody with the account username and password could log into the iCloud account and set a remote signal. That signal will remain on the tower or on the network until the phone is reactivated. So, yes, somebody would have to have the username and the password to log in to commit that offense.
Okay, and was the phone that you did an extraction of, was it light when you received it?
It was not.
Nothing further for the state for this.
Cross-examination.
No questions, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. McDowell. We will recess until till 2:15. Recess till 2:15. Please do not discuss the case.